And for the alternative viewpoint, I'll share a quote I found that sums up a completely different idea about what's really going on down here. And it goes like this. Robert Morningsky, a truth seeker of the Hopi and Apache tradition, tells the story he learned from his people about a race of beings who knew no limitations, who existed far outside this physical universe. One day, one of them declared his intention to visit Earth and take on a body just for the adventure of it, for the experience. His friends cautioned him, as this universe had a reputation as amnesia-producing, a place of no return. But the entity laughed that off and promised to come back after one lifetime. Centuries passed, and the entity never came home. One of his comrades decided to enter the physical world to go look for his friend. He promised not to get lost in matter and to return with the other individual. More centuries passed, and neither being returned. So another immortal entered physical mass, and he also never came back. In time, many members of these unlimited beings incarnated in human form, and the story goes, none of them has yet gone home. So that's today's topic. Is Earth a spiritual lesson school where souls come down here to learn beautiful spiritual lessons? Or is it a soul trap? And if it is a soul trap, what the hell is that all about? And it's not like this soul trap idea is new. An early pre-Christian religion called Gnosticism studied the whole reincarnation trap like 2,000 years ago. And they said some entities called the Archons and a demiurge who figured he was God set this all up. And there's a whole body of literature available on that if you want to take a look. But one of the big questions for me is what would be the benefit for these Archons if this is in fact what is going on? And for the answer to that question, we have to look no further than Robert Monroe of the Monroe Institute, who said not only are we on a prison planet, but the Archons use human beings like a kind of livestock because we generate something he called louche energy. And apparently we generate this energy when we're in a low vibratory state like depression or anger or other negative mind state. And this louche energy is apparently food for the Archons, or it has some other value. Which got me wondering if anything like this could really happen on Earth. And lo and behold, I came across this video clip of ants and aphids that kind of illustrates the whole point.
Which is used in the domination of the aphids. Never would you expect such a bizarre and devious thing going on in your garden, but ants use chemicals on their feet to tranquilize and subdue aphids, which allows them to harvest them for food. New research shows the chemicals in ants' footprints will not only tranquilize but inhibit the ability for aphids to regrow their wings. Now we already knew that ants use the chemicals on their feet to mark their territory, but ants will also mark leaves or a stalk of a plant. And as the aphids land on it, they will become tranquilized, to which the ant will march over and clip their wings, preventing their escape. The aphids, almost acting zombie-like, will get to work sucking juice from the kale, filling their body with honeydew. This honeydew is then excreted by the aphid when the ant strokes the back of the aphid, to which the drop will appear. The honeydew aphids produce will become the primary source of food for the ants, with the odd whole aphid thrown in there as a meal to mix it up.
And it's so amazing that the ants have a way of putting the aphids in a zombie state. I'm not sure if you've noticed how people are behaving lately, but there may be a parallel to that. Anyway, in Monroe's scenario, souls are trapped, mind-wiped, and perpetually reincarnated back to Earth to generate more louche energy. And once I started exploring this line of thought, it's not just Monroe and Gnosticism. There's a whole raft of books, Bibles, scriptures, websites, and YouTube channels featuring astral travelers and psychic mediums and others who all claim to have direct experience with the Archons. And I personally ran into what I called the gods of chaos in an ayahuasca ceremony, and those guys pretty much fit the description. I made some videos about the gods of chaos a while back, and you can look those up on this YouTube channel if you like and see what I had to say about that. So how does ayahuasca fit into all this? And one thing that most people will agree on is that ayahuasca will show you the nature of yourself. But along the way, you may also get an education into the nature of what we call reality on this planet. And what I really believe ayahuasca wants for each and every person that comes to the medicine is that we think for ourselves and figure out things for ourselves, which would be directly opposite to the archons who apparently want to keep us trapped here in a mass psychosis. And if the earth is some great spiritual lesson factory, what's the result of it? I mean, human beings have been on this earth for what, 250,000 years? So where's the progress? If we're all here learning these valuable spiritual lessons about how to become better human beings or better souls, what's the result? Because I'm failing to see the progress myself. And for just one small example of this, I'll tell you about my ancestry, which is half Irish. And at one point in time, the Irish were known as the niggers of Europe. And they were sold into slavery through something called indentured servitude, which simply meant they could never pay off a loan they were given to travel somewhere to get a fresh start. But really, it was just slavery. The debt could never be repaid. And so a lot of my indentured Irish ancestors wound up working right beside black slaves in the Caribbean, for example. So let's fast forward to today, and right now in this mess of a world, most people, to my understanding, are only a few $100s away from insolvency. And the vast majority of the people in the world work for less than $1 a day. So you tell me what's the difference between an indentured slave or a captured slave from a few hundred years ago or the majority of the people on this planet today? And actually not even a few hundred years ago. There are slave markets operating in this world right now to this day. And more to the point, what's this great spiritual lesson billions of people are supposed to be learning from being one paycheck away from homeless? And if anyone out there can explain this to me, just leave it in the comments or get a hold of me and just explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. Because at this point, I'm not buying into the idea that there's some huge, great spiritual lesson billions of people are supposed to be learning from economic slavery. Or on the other hand, mindlessly consuming material goods. And more to the point, what's the difference between my Irish ancestors and most people walking around on Earth today? Where's the progress? Because I'm just not seeing it. Anyway, this brings me to the whole point of this video. And the burning question on my mind is this: how does this continual reincarnation system really affect the people on planet Earth? And I don't care if it's archons or angels in charge. What happens to souls after this continual mind wipe and reincarnation cycle? What would happen to people after a few hundred or maybe even 1,000 reincarnation? And that's the question I was asking to whoever, just putting it out there. And because I asked the question, I got an answer. And this happened at a swap meet the other day in San Diego. Anyway, I wasn't really looking to buy anything myself, so I was just people watching. But I was being shown people in a whole different light. And it's kind of hard to explain. The nearest thing I could compare it to would be the scene from Men in Black, where Kay had his mind wiped by the neuralizer. So Kay got to see aliens, but instead of me seeing aliens, the only thing I could see, or more correctly, the only thing I was shown, was that some of these souls that are inhabiting human bodies on this earth today have gone insane. Like spiritual insanity, or maybe they've been spiritually institutionalized down here on earth. Just too many incarnations, too fast and too furious, and they lost it. And it was as plain as the nose on my face, like right in my face. A lot of people on this planet, and I would hazard to guess the majority of people, have no idea who they are or what they're doing here, or even why they're here on this planet incarnated at this time. And I don't think the swap meet has any particular stranglehold on insane souls, but it was just where I happened to notice it when it hit me. And I was like, what the hell? How did billions of spiritual beings get to be humans who then became economic slaves to a bunch of psychopaths? Is Earth an amnesia trap, like Robert Morning Sky says, or is it just some benevolent little spiritual lesson factory that you're, with your best interests at heart? So if there's slave owners down here on a planetary basis, what's going on up there? And the promoters of reincarnation will tell you that people can somehow get out of this system. If we learn everything we're supposed to know and we get everything right and blah, 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 off we go. But we never seem to get it quite right, do we? We always have to come back and do it all over again for some reason or another. And you'd think that if somebody had our best interests at heart, we could become better human beings, and some of us could graduate and off we go to wherever. But if we are being farmed for our louche energy, what are they going to do? Let people go? You don't leave the gate open for the chickens to get out of the chicken coop, from what I can see. And with our genetic makeup, we're pretty much trapped in this system for a whole bunch of different reasons, too numerous to get into in this little video. And if mankind ever did make it to the point where we could collectively fulfill our human potential, I would think that they're going to wipe us out and start the whole thing over again.
In the Amazon basin, in the lowland forests of Bolivia, archaeologists have discovered new evidence of an ancient civilization.
Nobody expected that kind of society in that region.
Using LiDAR technology, researchers peeled back the dense vegetation to reveal huge structures hidden beneath the trees.
Pyramids 20 meters high. The whole region has been so densely habitated during the pre-Hispanic time. That's incredible to believe.
Now, in an area once thought to be of little interest to archaeologists, hundreds of new sites have been uncovered.
There is new civilization, new culture waiting for us to study them.
So it seems to be our owners are not going to let us escape very easily. That would just be bad for business. Which brings us to the Archons, and just like we've been bred for certain characteristics, the Archons have certain characteristics themselves. Presumably they have their own genetic code or whatever it is, and their own culture, which includes owning slaves and using them for whatever purpose. That's what they do. And to them, it's probably no different than us raising chickens or pigs or whatever. As above, so below. And if you were looking to keep humans as a bunch of slaves, the system is designed perfectly. An entire planet full of not very smart monkeys who they can mind wipe and then send back down here time after time after time. And if you listen to the Eastern religions, they'll tell you that it's pretty much impossible to escape the great wheel of reincarnation. So you tell me what it is, some benevolent spiritual lesson school or a slave planet. Anyway, all this sounds incredibly bad, but it's not all doom and gloom. So in this whole reincarnation trap idea, if my father was there to greet me after I died, I can't tell you what that would mean to me. It would be just amazing. But I also understand that when people are in highly emotional states, they're pretty easy to manipulate. So which one is it? I get to meet my dead dad, or it's a sales job? The other thing is this. Let's say my grandmother is there to greet me. She died like over 40 years ago. My dad died 48 years ago, Earth time. And what, he's up there just waiting around to see me? Wouldn't they both have been reincarnated by now? This just doesn't make sense to me. The Buddhists will tell you that the period between death and rebirth is 49 days, not like 40 years. Anyway, you're greeted by your dad or grandma or whoever, and it's a big celebration. And there's also this great feeling of unconditional love and acceptance and so on. And then you get hit with the next big emotional event. There's a life review in there somewhere, or a guilt trip, or whatever you want to call that. And for me, it would be like, oh man, if I would have just done this better, or just did that, and it'd be so different, and on and on and on. And nobody would have to say anything, and I could just beat myself up all over again, which used to be one of my favorite hobbies. And then comes the next big thing, the big pitch. At some point, you get coerced or persuaded or actually flat out told you have to go back into your dying body, or you have to find a little human baby to inhabit, or, whatever. Which to me begs the question, who is it exactly telling me what to do? And when did this guy get the right to order me around? From what I understand, human beings are supposed to have free will. Isn't that some big thing, free will? So let me relate this to my ayahuasca experiences. What you're being shown or someone you meet over there may or may not be who or what they say they are. So if you're meeting a salesman on Earth to buy some life insurance or something, at least you understand the transaction. But what about over there? Did somebody over there explain to you how all that works, other than that you're going to be given amnesia and you're going to learn some big spiritual lesson? And the other thing I was told, when you meet someone or something over there, you should always ask the question, who are you and what do you want? And if you don't get a satisfactory answer, I'd be very leery about whatever it is. Because if somebody can't explain who they are or what they're doing, well, why not? Why can't they tell you? And so for me, things over there aren't always what they seem to be. It's a thought realm. Your thoughts create things. Somebody who knows how to manipulate things over there can show you all kinds of stuff. And it's almost like the great and powerful Wizard of Oz. So who is that's really standing in front of you? Your dad or your grandma or the Wizard of Oz? Or you're just so emotionally invested in seeing whoever it is, you just believe it all. So for somebody like me, just wanting to have a father's love from when I was a toddler, and somebody said, oh, I'm your dad, and he looks and talks like my dad and knows all about my life, it'd be pretty easy for me to buy into that whole scenario. In fact, I'd want to buy into that. Who wouldn't? And when you think about all the emotionally damaged people on Earth, who wouldn't just love to have one more moment with their father or mother or daughter or son or their loved ones? Now, that's some powerful motivation, isn't it? And if you're trying to get somebody to do something, just give them an emotional reason. It moves mountains. And speaking of powerful, this whole thing about unconditional love, from my understanding is we already have it inside of us. So what's going on? Are we feeling our own unconditional love, or is God or whoever it is over there giving it out like a party favor or something? So I'm asking myself, is this some big light show being put on for our benefit, some Wizard of Oz song and dance? And if I took a movie projector back in time and showed a light show to some cavemen and I said I was God, I'm pretty sure I'd be the head caveman in no time. And sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And if we're talking about a reincarnation trap that somebody supposedly built, I would say that any sufficiently advanced technology can be made to look like a near-death experience or the whole death experience. And here's the other big problem I have with this. You can't remember your past lives. So I can't remember the last time I died and went through all this. So what story did I get told the last time? And isn't that convenient for whoever is telling you to come back down? That you can't remember the last time you talked to him. You're not playing with a full deck. It's amnesia. You have no reference point. And while I'm on this, what was the point of learning all those great spiritual lessons if you can't remember them? It just makes absolutely no sense to me. So here's a little thought experiment for you. If I told you that you go into that building over there right now and somebody would wipe your mind and give you amnesia, and then you could go learn some great spiritual lesson you need to learn, would you do it? Would you deliberately forget who you are and what you've already accomplished in this life and try to figure everything out from square one? And I've read stories about people who get amnesia from head injuries or accidents or whatever. And that's no joke. These people suffer. Their families suffer. And this permission idea seems to be a common characteristic for astral travelers and shamans and other spiritual practitioners. They all seem to agree that the only way that somebody over there can do anything to you or with you is you have to give them permission. You have to agree to whatever it is. So if you're being told you have to reincarnate by God or whoever, ultimately it's your decision. We do have freedom of choice. And apparently even religions down here will tell you that. So which one is it? I have to obey or I have freedom of choice to do what I want to do? So if I wanted this demonic energy or whatever that was, I just had to tell this thing, yeah, sure, give me that energy. And then who knows how that would have played out or what I would have given up in exchange for this energetic gift. Anyway, there's some crazy shit going on down here, and not all of it is designed for your benefit. So is it possible there's archons harvesting your louche energy while you're down here on Earth and they operate a reincarnation trap?
They can take any kind of human energy and store it, be it hate, be it love, be it euphoria, be it whatever it may be. I think that they can offer those sensations, which can be commercially extremely productive.
And I really don't even know where to begin with that. It just answers so many questions for me. So maybe first thing, let's talk about alien abductions. People get abducted, they get medical exams, or they get milked for sperm, or they get impregnated, or whatever. And then they get their memories wiped, and then they get sent back down here. And some people get hypnosis to unlock their memories, but Jim says he remembers everything about all of his many, many abductions. And he even wrote a book about it, which is still on Amazon from like 2006 or 2008, like the second edition. And what is this book called? The Keepers. So how did that book get that title? Who's keeping who exactly? Anyway, for me, this is where things get very, very interesting. Because what Jim is explaining to me could be human emotional drug trafficking for aliens, or something along those lines. Jim says that aliens can store human emotions. The Gnostics have been saying for 2,000 years that humans were put down here to generate louche energy. For who? The Archons or the Keepers? And now we find out that they can store it, put it in a bottle or a pill or whatever. And then what happens? He says they barter with it. But what if it's a little more valuable than that? There's like 7 or 8 billion people on planet Earth. So just think of the raw human emotional energy being generated day in and day out. So what are they doing with that? Putting it on the alien black market? Everything humans feel, from sexual energy or sexual deviancy, what it feels like to murder somebody, being in a war, rape, drug addiction, or conversely, I guess, childhood joy or innocence or beauty. And the aliens can just take this energy and put it in a bottle. And I say put it in a bottle, but really we have no idea what they're doing with it. What if they're refining it, like taking opium and producing heroin? What would human emotional heroin extract be worth on the intergalactic alien black market? And I'm just speculating here. I can't say one way or another what they do with it, but I do subscribe to the as above, so below theory. And you don't have to look very far to see the rampant drug use down here. Everything from alcohol to ecstasy and everything in between. So for me, the implications are staggering. When you think about this on a planetary basis, 99.99% of the human race, what kind of Volush energy are they generating? So if the Earth really is a slave planet, there's got to be a management system. And this is where reincarnation comes into play. And for me, reincarnation is just an alien technology to keep us coming back down to this nonsense time after time after time. And just continuing on with that line of thought, I want to compare the technology used during reincarnation to the technology used for alien abductions, which to me is exactly the same technology in both cases. And the big thing there is so first thing, let's talk about reincarnation. And if you want the Western scientific viewpoint on reincarnation, just check out the University of Virginia. They've published all kinds of studies on reincarnation. Or just take a trip to India, you'll get the idea. We get reincarnated. And most people interpret reincarnation as a spiritual or religious event. But I subscribe to the idea that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. To which I would add in this case, where it's indistinguishable from a religious event. And in my way of thinking, reincarnation is just the fence that keeps the prisoners on the slave planet. It's the prison wall for the human soul. Because you can't have us just wandering off the reservation after we die. Reincarnation is protecting the alien investment in their little slave planet down here. So let's compare reincarnation technology to alien abduction technology, which, from what I can tell, is pretty much the same thing. And not only that, but scientists have actually duplicated a major part of that technology down here on Earth today, which I'll get into in a little bit. But first thing, let's talk about what happens during an abduction. People are transported out of their homes or cars and taken to a UFO where they're medically examined and genetics are harvested or whatever. And then afterwards, and this is a key element, they're mind wiped and sent back down to their home or car or wherever. And during an abduction, our normal rules of physics just don't apply, or physics gets suspended somehow. And this is exactly what happens during a reincarnation. After we die, we get transported somewhere with the light. And to me, the light is just a big transport system, or however you want to think of that. It's taking us someplace. And then we get a big song and dance and get convinced to come back down here for whatever reason. But before that happens, here we go again with the mind-wiping technology. And the only difference I can see is that in an abduction, you don't have a choice. You're kidnapped, mind-wiped, and then sent back, all without your consent. In reincarnation, we apparently do have a choice. But for whatever reason, most of us just voluntarily come back down here time after time after time. And to me, that's because of emotional manipulation and just outright lies. They're not giving us all the information about this planet or what they're really up to or even who they are. But in both cases, our normal rules of physics don't apply. In the abduction scenario, aliens can walk through walls. They can transport you out of your home or car without bothering to open the doors. Or they can just beam you up aboard a spaceship. Which is exactly what happens in a reincarnation. We can walk through walls or fly up to the ceiling. And if we try to interact with someone down here, they can't see us. If we try to hug somebody or grab them or whatever, our arms will go right through them. So once again, our normal physics get canceled in both events. And the other major thing is you're taken to an environment where they have control. They're in charge of whatever is going on. And then finally, surprise, surprise, the big mind wipe before we get sent back. And very few people remember their past lives, or it's just a limited memory. And in an abduction, most people just think they're missing some time. Our memories are still there, but we have to do something special to access them, like past life regression or hypnotic regression, to find out what happened. Which to me is so let's talk about this mind-wiping technology. And I hate to say it, but this is exactly like the neuralizer in the Men in Black movies.
This is called a neuralizer. It's a gift from some friends from out of town. This red eye here will isolate the electronic impulses in your brains, and more specifically the ones for memory.
What in the hell is going on?
Excellent question. And the answer you're looking for lies right here.
Who are you? Really?
Really? I am just a figment of your imagination. Damn, what a gullible breed. Damn, what a gullible breed.
And I love Kay's line there. What a gullible breed. Or are we just being lied to by the experts? And if you think a neuralizer is just science fiction, we've already created a neuralizer down here. Scientists can now wipe out specific memories from mice. So not only is a mind wipe possible, but we know how to do it. And just like the fictional neuralizer, it works from a light technology, just how Kay described it. And if we're already making neuralizers down here today, what technology does an advanced alien species have? And would we consider that magic or an advanced technology if we weren't aware of it? And just a great big segue here. I've heard that the aliens or the cabal or whatever you want to call them have to warn us about what they're doing. Apparently they have some rule about that. And I think I know where this rule comes from. Because if you're going to do something to a spirit or a soul, you have to get them to agree. In other words, they can't do anything to you unless they have your consent. Or maybe at the very least, they have to warn you about whatever it is they're up to. And apparently they do that through movies or other mass media. Anyway, for me, in the abduction scenario, the aliens are using a portable neuralizer, and during a reincarnation, they're using a big neuralizer or something along those lines. And in both cases, we're dealing with technology that creates a great big secret. And I have a hard time believing that that's for my benefit. Secrets are just like lies, and they're never healthy. And that goes for everything from dysfunctional family relationships to dysfunctional governments, the military-industrial complex, and everything in between. All the control mechanisms we see around us. It's all done in the shadows and in the dark and in secret, including spying on every citizen in the world. They don't want us to know what they're up to. I mean, if the ETs are just benign spiritual beings helping us out, what's the problem? Why can't they just tell us what they're doing? Why do I need to be mind wiped after I supposedly learn all their lessons? Is there any school out there where you're supposed to forget what you've learned? That would seem to be counterproductive, wouldn't it? It would be like going to class and learning some basic math one day, but tomorrow you won't remember it, and then we'll move on to algebra. Where's the progress? So just look around at the world today. Where's the human progress? We're not evolving, we're devolving. And all of this might sound really horrible, but it's not all bad news. Knowledge is power. The truth, as they say, shall set you free. Because, as it turns out, there's an escape clause. We're not kept here against our will. we come down here voluntarily. If you can imagine that. We have to agree to be here, and there's no other way for them to get you into a human body other than through your voluntary consent. And so the big pregnant question for me is this: how can they persuade us to come down here time and time again? And the answer to that is it all depends on your belief system. For example, you die and you meet God the Father or Jesus Christ or whoever, and he says you need to get back into a body to learn something, or to help with your children, or your family, or whatever else they can tell you. And they will tell you whatever bullshit story is necessary to get you back. And they know exactly what to say because they can read you like a book. Your entire existence is available to them. All your past lives, your psychological makeup, everything about you. And they're kind of like the army recruiters. They're persistent as fuck. And they don't take no for an answer. And apparently, you and I fell for it again because here we are. And when you step back and look at this reincarnation system, I really can't say enough about it. It is so well designed and so intricately detailed and just so finely tuned to us human beings. They understand us at a level that makes our best psychiatrists look like a bunch of pinheads. And all of this operates off of our belief system. Our beliefs from this lifetime become the method of persuasion for our next reincarnation. And that could be any number of human motivators. It could be religious. I loves me some Jesus and I'll do anything he tells me. Or they'll use something else like guilt or shame or a desire to help people or help your kids or whatever it is. And it's all based on our human emotions, which coincidentally humans are genetically altered to be highly emotional creatures. So just think about that. And just so we don't catch on to all this bullshit lifetime after lifetime, before we incarnate down here, we get our memories wiped. We're down here like some drunk amnesiacs who have no idea who they are or how they got here. You're just plopped down into this life. So the reincarnation system is brilliant, and it does exactly what it was designed to do. I know a lady who reincarnated back down here as her daughter's child. In other words, she was actually the dead grandmother of who she is in this lifetime. And she came down here to help her daughter, which in this lifetime is going to be her mother. But here's the problem with all that. Her life as a grandmother was incredibly traumatic. So now she's in an incarnation down here with all that unresolved trauma from that past life. And all she has is this idea to help her mother, which she did. But all those unresolved past life generational traumas are entirely messing up her life in the here and now. So how is she supposed to figure that out? Let alone do something about it? And a lot of our problems in this life are generational. And then we go through childhood and get some more bullshit and trauma on top of that. Because everybody down here is a wounded human being in one way or another. And our society and our schools are sick. And kids are energetic sponges and they just suck this up. And none of that energy just goes away. It becomes part of who we are. And it doesn't get resolved from dying or reincarnation or going to heaven or getting forgiven by whoever. It's like the law of conservation. Our energetic signature doesn't move until some force moves it.